Liberal Viewer presents.
So many of you probably remember about a year ago now in November 2006 when things first started going bad between Viacom and YouTube. A lot of you probably first heard about it watching this clip from the Colbert Report.
Earlier this week, it was widely reported that clips of the Colbert Report would be removed from YouTube due to network copyright concerns. Well, Nation, I don't know how that rumor got started. I think maybe because my parent company put out a press release saying that it would happen.
But that press release was not the only communication I received from Viacom that day. Earlier, I had gotten 4 copyright takedown notices that I've posted over at a webpage at liberalviewer.com. And now, like everyone else who uploads videos to YouTube, I had to agree to the YouTube terms of use that prohibit infringing copyrights, and every time I click that upload button, I also agree not to infringe on copyrights. I also notice, however, that YouTube's copyright tips page has always included information and links about fair use. Now, fair use, according to federal law, involves the use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. Unfortunately, the law of fair use just gets more complicated from there. Other YouTubers often ask me how many seconds of copyrighted material they can use or how much commentary they have to add for their work to qualify as fair use, but the law just doesn't give simple answers like that. Instead, there's this even more complicated 4-part test that weighs the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Now, even though those 4 factors don't exactly provide clear answers, after a little more research, I thought I had good arguments under all 4 factors for all 4 of those videos for which I'd gotten the takedown notices. So I drafted 4 counter notices under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA, in which I swore under penalty of perjury that I'm not an expert in intellectual property law, but that I did have a good faith belief that my videos were fair use and not copyright infringement. And I've also posted copies of those counter notices over at liberalviewer.com. So I sent those 4 counter notices to YouTube with copies to Viacom, and that's when things really started getting confusing. I got this weird email response from YouTube in which it looked like YouTube's lawyers didn't understand how things are supposed to work under the DMCA. They claimed YouTube would need, quote, an army of lawyers and untold sums of money and litigation fees, unquote, to evaluate my DMCA counter notices. So, as strange as it may seem, in November 2006, I had to write an email to YouTube, a $1.6 billion part of Google, explaining to them how federal copyright laws are supposed to work. You can read the whole email at liberalviewer.com, including the message from YouTube to which I was responding, and see me explain to YouTube. The whole point of the DMCA was to allow me to take on the risk of getting sued, and if Viacom Comedy Central decides on closer examination that I do not deserve to be sued, you can put my videos back up with no risk of liability to YouTube, and no need for an army of lawyers and untold sums of money and litigation fees. It's all described in the federal statute to which YouTube referred in its notice to me, 17 U.S.C. 512. According to 17 U.S.C. 512 sub G sub 2, when YouTube receives my counter notice, YouTube then gives a copy of my counter notification to the person at Viacom Comedy Central who complained and informs that person that it will replace the removed material or cease disabling access to it in 10 business days. Next, my wife and I wait to see if a huge multinational corporation wants to sue me. If not, again, according to 17 U.S.C. 512 sub G sub 2, YouTube then replaces the removed material and ceases disabling access to it. And then I asked YouTube, if Viacom Comedy Central declines to sue me in the next 2 weeks, under the law, shouldn't YouTube replace the removed material? But YouTube didn't answer my question, and even though Viacom never sued me, YouTube didn't put my videos back up. Even worse, because I sent copies of the 4 counter notices to Viacom, I did get a response from Michelina Halley, Senior Vice President and Deputy General Counsel for Intellectual Property at Viacom. Ms. Halley said she was investigating the matter and requested copies of my videos for her review. And I have to admit it was pretty disconcerting getting an email from the Senior Vice President and Deputy General Counsel for Intellectual Property at Viacom. That's because I never really expected to have to deal directly with the big corporate copyright holder. I figured Viacom was going after all the actual infringers, and when somebody read my counter notice, Viacom would just do nothing. I could also do nothing, and after 10 business days, everything would just go back to where it was before the takedowns. But with YouTube not following the DMCA rules, and with an email from the Senior Vice President and Deputy General Counsel for Intellectual Property at Viacom asking me for evidence that might be used against me, I realized I needed help from some lawyers who really knew what they were doing. So I enlisted the help of some great lawyers, Ann Brick and Nicole Ozer, both staff attorneys at the ACLU of Northern California, and they spent a lot of time doing these complicated legal analyses of my amateur little videos, and they spent more hours talking to me on the phone, all for free. And unfortunately, again, it turned out that the intellectual property issues were really complicated, and they needed someone with even more expertise to come and give some kind of real answer. And what was also becoming clear was that even though I could claim fair use, I could still end up losing a lot of time, money, and effort fighting a lawsuit with an outcome that was uncertain at best. So as November turned to December, and December became January 2007, particularly since I was still able to upload videos to YouTube, the need to find the expert and get my 4 missing fair use videos back up onto YouTube was seeming not that pressing. All that changed at the beginning of February, though, when the negotiations totally broke down between Viacom and YouTube, and Viacom sent out 100,000 takedown notices to YouTube in preparation for that $1.5 billion lawsuit in March. Now, among those 100,000 takedown notices, I eventually found out there were 13 more accusing my videos of copyright infringement. But back on that Saturday night last February when it all happened, all I knew was that my videos were disappearing one by one, and then suddenly my account was suspended, as you can see reported in this article that ran in my local paper titled YouTube Purges Liberal Viewers Account. That's also over at a link at the liberalviewer.com webpage. Now, Viacom's $1.5 billion lawsuit against YouTube was about YouTube's liability for hosting material that infringes on copyrights, or as Dimitri Martin explained on The Daily Show after the lawsuit was filed in March.
Basically, we're talking about whether it's illegal to watch me discussing the legality of you watching me on The Daily Show if you're watching it on YouTube. Maybe I'm on YouTube right now. You watching me on YouTube? Check it out, I'm buffering.